Welcome back everybody, it's Adrada here with another teaser video for the 843 MPT tournament. Today we're gonna look at maps and nothing but maps. I'm gonna repeat real quick what the rules are for the map generation in the tournament. Then I'm gonna show you guys how spawns in this tournament might look like. And in the end, I'll once again reveal to you guys the example map. And we'll see how this example map matches up to y'all's expectations and what you guys think the tournament will actually play out like in the end. So real quick, let's repeat the info we already have about the map generation. That being that we're going to be playing on actual MPT maps that are randomly generated with very mild modifications. Those modifications being, of course, me setting up my spectator island so I can stream the game, and anti-popping settlers. So once again, everybody's gonna start with an extra settler that they will not be able to use, and that will make it so you cannot get settlers out of goody huts. The map will be cut off so that the land size fits 6 players. So I generated the 8-player MPT map as I would use it in a ladder game, and then I cut off a corner or something so that the land size more appropriately fits 6 players. I did not change the player spawns, however. The only other thing that I did change is the strategic resource placement, because that's what this tournament is all about. For games 1, 4, and 7, every player is gonna get iron in their capital and horses rather far away. Far away meaning 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 tiles in an extreme case. In games 2, 5, and 8, people are gonna get a horse capital and the iron will be quite far away. I've marked that in the color red because the map we're gonna look at today, the example map that I provided in the player draft already, is one of those maps where horse is going to be in everybody's capital. And games 3, 6, and 9, my favorite types of maps, every team is going to have one player starting with iron and one player with horse in their capital. The other respective resource then being quite far away again. So, what are these maps potentially going to look like for the players? For this one, join me in looking at the perspectives of each player on this example map. I've never looked at this myself, so we're gonna find out about this together. Now, as you can see in the top right corner, we've got player number 2, which is one of Team Cheese's players. He's spawned in the bottom right corner of this map. Let's discover for ourselves what we think about this map. We also got the anti-popping settlers up here in the north, so maybe that tells us a little bit about the map distribution as well. So I'm just going to make some example removes. Maybe move the worker onto the bonus grassland. You could then save the hut, I guess. So maybe you would do something, I don't know, something like this. And you can already get some nice intel on this map. Remember that you start with horse in your capital city, and the iron is going to be quite far away. Well, that doesn't give us any substantial bonus info here. We know that somewhere in this radius here there's going to be horses, which is going to be quite nice. Moving on to player number 2, our teammate. He spawns at BC78, you can see. And that gives us already some nice intel. We're not that far apart, as you can see. Cheese was in the bottom right corner, somewhere here. So that's nice. Cheese player number 2 spawns over here. Again, we spawn with horse in a capital, so we keep that in mind. We've got a little bit an awkward spawn here. Would probably plant on the spot and then see from there. We've got forest firs, which sounds quite OP, I've heard. So maybe we would just start out by irrigating one of those floodplains. Interesting start. And again, our anti-pop settler is also somewhere in the north, so the map probably cuts off somewhere over here. Doesn't go all that far north. At least not over here in the west. So, let's look at the next team. Team Halu's players. Where do they spawn? They've got an interesting anti-pop settler, spawning not so much in the north. So interestingly, we can probably infer if we're Team Halu that the map doesn't extend all that far west, at least not northwest. Halu himself spawns in the southwestern part of the map. He's the Incan, so let's scout around a little bit with him, maybe. Alright, he's also, of course, gonna have that horse in his capital. Could be in many directions, as you can see, could be over here, down there as well. It looks like an interesting start. Now let's check out where our teammate is, if we are Team Halo here. Oh, and that's very interesting. Team Halo's teammate spawns all the way in the top right corner. So these two guys are, in this example, very, very far apart. Could make for a very different game from their perspective, as opposed to Team Cheese's game that we looked at first, because they were rather close together. This one is almost feels like worst case, and we've got another one of these very interesting anti-popping settlers right there that this island can probably be used to boat around, so that's some nice info that Team Halo has, as opposed to their opponents, I would guess. So these anti-popping settlers really giving some nice intel for teams as well. Let's move on then to Team Anti. How does their map look like? Well, the first player spawns kind of in the bottom to the right, so between one of Cheese and Halo's players, if we remember, but of course they don't know that. Might just start out by mining that tile, moving that settler one over. And again, we've got horses in our capital and iron quite far, so we know that none of these hills and mountains have iron. That is big intel, because if you know that you play on one of these horse capital maps, or when you're on the mixed maps and you're the player that's supposed to spawn with horse in the capital, you can safely plant your capital on these hills without running the risk of planting on iron. So that's an interesting thing to consider as well on these types of maps. And not too much info for Team Anti though. Apart from that, let's check out where the second player is. And that's interesting. It's just a bit north of the first one. Also not terribly far apart. Maybe here, 15 tiles or something. Player 2 somewhere down there. But yeah, not a great start here, I would say, for Anti's second player as well. But he's got enough BG to make it work, probably. The anti-pop settler for him is all the way down here in the corner, so that's interesting. Not too much intel to be gained from that, I don't think. As you can see, there's not much vision granted to this little man. So yeah, that's the perspectives for all the players here. You can think for yourselves how you would play this if this is a terribly unbalanced map. Remember, the spawn locations are random, so I don't decide which two players from which team spawn where. It's completely random here for these maps, so that is quite interesting. Could be very different in the actual tournament game. And of course, we're not going to be using this exact map for the tournament itself, mainly because we've already looked at this very map in the player draft video. In case you missed that, here you go. Now let's look at the entire revealed map that we just played. As you can see, it's a main continent, of course, just like an MPT, but the top left corner is cut off. You've got the spawn locations of everybody here. 3 players down south, 3 players up north. A little bit of a curved shape there. Again, we're not going to be using this exact map in the tournament, but tournament maps might look very similar. There's always going to be the opportunity to boat around the x-axis. Sometimes I had to insert these islands in order to make that work, but that's always going to be consistently given. And as you can see, the anti-popping settlers are always positioned outside of vision from each other, but they can grant a team some valuable intel about how the map is shaped. So that's also something to be taken into account. As you can see, the resources are all here to be seen. And yeah, that's it for this introductory video. This is one example of how a map in the tournament could look like. And I hope the players' perspectives here I showed you a second ago gave you a nice feeling of how difficult it would be to actually get a sense of orientation on these tournament maps. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you're about as excited as I am for the tournament to finally start on February 13th, Monday, on my Twitch stream. Make sure to check in for updates over there, and I hope to see you guys in the live stream. Come say hi in the chat if you're watching.